Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. McFerran, I heard what you just said, that it's the responsibility of the National Labor Relations Board to protect those workers. Is it the responsibility of the Labor Relations Board to determine who their employer is, or is it who pays their salary?
Thank you for that question, Senator. The issue of how you define who an employer is under the Act is one that is very likely to come before me if I'm confirmed as a board member, so I wouldn't want to prejudge that issue. I would be called on to interpret that definition if I was confirmed.
This is a really, really important thing. And I didn't ask you to make a ruling on joint employment. What I asked you was, is the person that the NLRB is responsible to protect them from the company that pays their check?
Again, the question of who meets the definition of an employer under the Act is actually always a very fact-specific inquiry, too. It's going to very much depend on the circumstances on the ground. There's a number of terms and conditions of employment that can implicate that question. So it's a difficult question to answer in the abstract. Both.
But let me tell you why this is important. Senator Alexander's right. I think the NLRB determination as it related to college scholarships is just ludicrous. But if you apply what the General Counsel at NLRB is trying to do relative to joint employment, not only would the school be liable, but the donors would be liable. The donors who gave to a college fund to fund the scholarships of the athletes, and I might say to Senator Harkin that it would be extremely easy to extrapolate this under that definition to say the academic scholarships that were awarded, those students are protected from the university, and the university would also then, under this ruling, I think, extend it to the donors to the university would be potentially liable for the conditions that those students are under. This has incredible impact. So I have really just one question of you. Do you believe there are any limitations to what the NLRB can do to determine how many people who don't actually pay the check are in the chain of liability for an employee?
If the issue were to come before me as a board member, all I can pledge to you is that I would consider it with a very open mind. I would look at the arguments presented to me in the case. I would review the record. I would consult with my colleagues, and I would review the issue with a completely open mind.
Well, I appreciate that, and I'll since I've got a minute 53 left, I'll continue to editorialize a little bit. We have disagreements with determinations made by not just NLRB, but other government agencies. And when it's a Republican administration, I have just as many problems with some of them, and Tom does, and Democrat, we're back and forth. Where we're headed doesn't pass a smell test. It is so far outside of what the public believes is not just the responsibility of the NLRB, the responsibility of government. That somebody that isn't involved in the management, the contraction of an employment, the payment of a check, the funding of the check, is somehow in the chain of liability if in fact their employer makes the wrong decision, has implications to economic growth that could be devastating in this country. It could have implications to higher education that means no student receives a scholarship. It's further than what Senator Alexander raised, and that's that if this were to be enacted and student athletes under scholarship could unionize, I can tell you who the loser is. It's female sports. Because the money will flow out of Division I football, and it's Division I football that pays all of the scholarships for women. It's the only profitable sport out there, other than ACC basketball, by the way. And I point that out to make the strong point that Senator Alexander and I feel, but also to say, for gosh sakes, understand the implications of what you're getting ready to do. Because when you do this, you will never reverse it fully. And the impact across our economy, and the U.S. economy is, I think, the greatest entrepreneurial, innovative economy in the world. And every day there's somebody coming out with something without the capital to create a network of businesses in 50 states. They franchise. And if you now say, if you franchise, you're just as liable as the franchisee as the person that franchises from you, even though you have no responsibilities to pay their employees, to manage their employees, to make the decisions on their employees, but you're in the chain of responsibility as it relates to the Labor Relations Board. I can tell you what's going to happen. We're going to kill franchise businesses in this country. And that right now is the employment engine of America. I want to rev it up. I don't want to kill it. I thank you for being here. I thank the chairman.